Hi, it's Sarah with mynaturalbabybirth.com. I had a question from a young man, of all people. He asked me, what does a contraction actually feel like? You see, I was at a conference with a bunch of other bloggers and business owners, and I was going around visiting with people, and these gentlemen asked me, oh, what do you do? What do you teach? I shared what I share about what I share on mynaturalbabybirth.com, and they were fascinated. It's amazing how young men in this day and age actually support the same ideas and are learning about natural birth, pregnancy, and things like that as much as you are. And so I thought, okay, if this young man wants to know, then of course a new pregnant mom or one that has never felt a contraction before would be curious. What does it actually feel like? Well, there are actually two different kinds of feelings. And what I have experienced is not necessarily going to be what you experience, because there's different kinds of labor. Your body is completely unique to your situation, etc. But this is going to be the best estimate I can give for you in describing what a contraction feels like. So there's kind of two different kinds of contractions. First of all, when you are in labor, this is before you're pushing, this is before transition, before the baby is descending down your birth canal. This is when your vagina, your cervix is opening. So those kinds of contractions, I like to describe it, it's kind of like the opposite of a vice. When you feel a vice, like pinching really tight, it's like the opposite. You've got an opening, right? And you've got, your cervix is dilating. And so it's like a vice, but pushing outward. It's stretching, it's opening up. And that is very similar to what bad period cramps feel like. So imagine your worst period cramp ever, right? You've got these ebbs and flows of just achy pains because your uterus is shedding blood and it's contracting back down to a smaller size because you're losing blood during a period, right? But in this case, your cervix is opening up, stretching, you're losing a little bit of blood, you're losing mucus, things are opening up, right? It's usually more concentrated down right below. Here I am pointing to my belly, but you might not be able to see it. Down at the very bottom of your pelvis, down below your uterus, right at your cervix. You can feel it in your back, in your stomach. It may feel like it's everywhere, but it mostly feels like a horrible period cramp. I don't want to say horrible. A very, very intense, strong cramp that comes in waves like a vice, opening you up, stretching you so that you dilate bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the first kind of contraction. Those can feel very similar to an orgasm as well. Now, an orgasm is when your vagina, your vaginal wall, and your cervix at the top of it is spasming, contracting, and relaxing over and over and over really quickly. That is where you feel an orgasm. Now, that is very similar to what's happening during a contraction. A contraction, your vagina and your cervix is contracting and then releasing, but it's very slow. It's not over and over really quickly like an orgasm, it's slower. And so it's contracting to create room to stretch, open, and create more room as you dilate. That's the first kind. The second kind is when you're fully dilated and that baby is ready to come out. So this is, you've transitioned, you're in the final stage of labor, and your uterus is doing its job to push that baby out down through your vagina. Now your vagina and your cervix and your uterus are all working together. Your cervix is wide open, your vagina is stretching as wide open as it can, and the top of your uterus, so imagine your uterus like this. Let me pull. Say my wrist is your cervix, here's your birth canal, your vagina and then your uterus, but you know, of course, it's a lot bigger with your baby in there. What happens is when your baby needs to start descending, the top of your uterus is starting to squish, contract, get smaller, just like during a period when it gets smaller to reduce the blood and the extra volume that you're shedding off. The top of your uterus is pushing down, squishing down to get smaller so that that pressure and with your diaphragm can push the baby, so here's the baby, to move down your cervix and the birthing canal. So all of that pressure moves through the cervix, moves through the vagina, and the top of your uterus is still pushing downward all the way until that baby comes out, right? Now, it's very similar, and yet it's different compared to a contraction when you're just dilating. A contraction when your baby is descending is more pressurized. It doesn't feel as much orgasmic like an orgasm. That's the quick contractions and relaxations of just your vagina and cervix. It's more pressurized, bearing down type feeling, like when you are going to the bathroom and you're having a bowel movement. So all of your uterine muscles, your internal diaphragmatic muscles, and your cervix, vagina, they're all bearing down in a pushing like contractive pressure to push the baby out, just like your colon does to push out a bowel movement. Those are the two different kinds of contractions that you will feel. They're very similar and yet they feel differently. So I told this young man that asked me what a contraction feels like, I told him, imagine the biggest dump of your life, you're crapping a brick, and combine that with an orgasm. Combine that with an orgasm, and that's the closest thing that I can that I can relate to you and describe how that feels, with lots of pressure. Like you have a bowling ball or a cantaloupe coming out. Slow, steady, pressurized, like a bowel movement and an orgasm all at the same time. And he kind of nodded his head and said, that makes sense. I don't know if he actually understood what I meant, but I hope that helps. So with the two different kinds of contractions, they feel a little bit different, but they're also very similar as well. Bonus tip, in order to actually feel more of an orgasmic type feeling where all those endorphins are flooding your body and the contractions actually feel good and they're on the side of a high rather than a pain, I've put all of the things that I mastered in my ebook, mynaturalbabybirth.com/relax, because the key and the huge thing that made a difference for me was actually mastering how to relax your mind and your body and let your uterus do its job. And that allows the flow of all the endorphins to make everything feel good and all of the stress hormones to go away, which inhibit everything and make you feel worse. So if you would like to have contractions that feel better and more better than worse, check out that ebook, get a copy, put those simple practices into place, and I promise you that you will have a labor that is more enjoyable than it ever would have without. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have questions, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.